Welcome to In the Great Wide. We want to tell you everything you need to know about something that we think should be on everyone's bucket list. It's the most scenic train ride in the United States called the California Zephyr.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Phoebe.
We did a month-long train trip across the U.S. and back, starting and ending in Los Angeles. First, we did the Coast Starlight from L.A. to Emeryville, which is just across the bay from San
Francisco.
Yeah, San Fran, as the locals call it. Then
we got on the California Zephyr to go all the way over to Denver. We left Emeryville around 9 a.m. And then got into Denver around 6:30 p.m. the following day.
Yeah.
So
this route takes 33 and a half hours.
Yeah. So
it's a long time on the train.
Yeah. So be prepared to spend the night on the train, sleep on the train, which we will talk more about in a minute.
When you first leave from Emeryville, sit on the west side of the train, which is because all the coach seats are facing forward. Sit on the left side. The left side. Yes. So, because
when you're leaving Emeryville, you'll pretty much immediately get waterfront views.
Yeah.
Because you're following along the bay. I don't know what
San Pablo Bay.
San Pablo Bay.
It's really pretty. It's got a lot of really nice bridges.
Yes.
When you get on the train, after you find your seats, once you get your ticket scanned, go over to the observation car.
So the observation car is one car on the California Zephyr train that has huge windows, as well as some windows like on the ceiling overhead. So you get a really wide panoramic view. And we spent almost the entire time on the Zephyr in the observation car.
Yeah, definitely the first day. There was a certain point where there was literally nobody else in the observation car.
Yeah, we had the whole thing to ourselves. It was crazy.
It was weird because we had taken the Coast Starlight, and in the Coast Starlight it was pretty busy. And when we got on the train and went up, it was shocking how long nobody else bothered to get into the observation car.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
But as you were leaving Emeryville Station in San Francisco, go to the observation car after your ticket gets scanned so that you can enjoy the beautiful waterfront views of the bay. And then you'll cut inland and start heading east. And so you'll have a couple of hours there where it's less pretty if you need to take a nap or something like that.
Yeah, Central California is not the prettiest of views. It's fine.
Well, Central being like the middle of the state running downward. It's not like
pretty much everything
Central.
After San Pablo Bay to Sacramento is just kind of
Yeah, it's not as amazing as the rest of the views, is the point. But you do then get into the more heavily forested areas around Tahoe, and it is beautiful. So you'll want to be in the observation car for that, for sure.
Yeah. As we were going, we actually had a delay because a freight train had derailed near Colfax, and they can only use one track instead of the two. Because and we had to be delayed for a while because they had to wait for another train to come by, and they always favor freight trains on the tracks because the Amtrak shares a track with freight trains, and the freight trains pay more money, so they get priority. So we had to wait for a while, but eventually we passed by the freight train that was derailed, and it was really fascinating. It was really cool to see.
It was a little crazy.
Unfortunately, this would become an ongoing occurrence on our month-long trip.
Yeah.
A lot of stopping and waiting for other trains to go by because one track was out of commission.
Yeah. But that also means that they are doing maintenance on the tracks.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's for safety and it's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, we always still, except for one leg, we always still showed up pretty much on time. We were never.
There was only one leg of our month-long trip that we were really significantly late for.
Yes.
But after you pass through Soda Springs,
not the Oregon Trail, Soda Springs. I was really excited about it, and then found out that that's in Idaho.
But you do get to go past Donner Lake.
Yeah.
As you're going into Truckee. Which was a historical stopping point for the infamous Donner Party. And if you don't know who the Donner Party is, I will put a link in the description so you can read about them because it's fascinating. I love that you are so excited about this.
I love the Donner Party story. It is fascinating to me. So click the description and read about it because it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. But the thing that I didn't realize is that Donner Lake is huge. It's a narrow-ish lake, but it's so long and so beautiful. So beautiful. It just comes up out of nowhere when you're heading west, and it is so pretty.
But then we got into Nevada at the early evening hours at the end of the first day on the train. And we got to watch the sunset over the desert, which was nice. However, fresh air breaks on this route were few and far between. Because when we went, we got on the train, like we said, around 9 a.m. in Emeryville, and our first stop wasn't until we got into Reno, which was like 6 or 7 hours later. And even then, that fresh air break in Reno was in a tunnel. So the fresh air breaks are also smoking breaks. So that being in the tunnel made it really hard to get away from the smokers, and that was an issue for me.
It was disappointing, and it wasn't the last time that would happen during our month-long trip, unfortunately. But there's really nothing you can do about it. You try to get away from them, but what can you do?
But you don't want to go too far away from the train because you need to hear them call the all aboard. So that you don't miss the train again, because they will leave.
There was supposed to be a fresh air stop in Sacramento, but I think they cut that short, just to boarding and unboarding because of the delays. The delay with the freight train derailment and stuff. So they were just like, nope, we're just going to keep going. We got to make up time. Which was disappointing because, not that I wanted to stop in Sacramento, but
you need the fresh air.
I wanted to get out into the air. You'll realize just how important they are when you're on a train for 33 and a half hours. How much you want to get out in the fresh air. You do get into Utah in the middle of the night. It's unfortunate because you pass by the Great Salt Lake, which I've never been to. Well, technically never been to, because we passed right by it, but it was 3 a.m.
Right.
And once you're inside that train and it's dark, you literally can't see
anything.
Anything out the windows.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Which is disappointing at certain points, but that's just how train travel goes, you know? But the next morning, when the sun was coming up, we were passing through Green River, Utah, which has some amazing red rock formations. So that was a really beautiful morning to wake up to.
You go to sleep in like kind of weird deserty stuff of like, this is not interesting, and then you wake up and it is so pretty. The red rocks are so pretty. I was so impressed. It was like having a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, because it was like, oh my god, this is so pretty.
Well, and that was, I think, both of our first times actually being in Utah. So we were really excited about getting to see some of those rock formations. And it was really cool. And day 2 is really where the truly spectacular views are. That is the reason why this is considered to be the most scenic train route in the United States. But it's also the most crowded day.
Definitely. You got to get in the observation car early to get your spot and hang out, because the observation car will fill up. Very quickly. Everybody wants to get on, and they do eventually. Later they will ration time, just because it is so popular in this route. But get in there early when you get up in Green River and hang out and stake your claim.
Claim a spot. Claim a spot.
Because when you cross into Colorado, it is literally like someone's painting a new vista every time you look out the window. It is so gorgeous.
Colorado is one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's just incredible.
Especially Western Colorado on that other side of the Rockies. It is so pretty.
But the observation car got totally full after we stopped in Grand Junction, which is the first stop once you get into Colorado. But then at the next stop in Glenwood Springs, you'll pick up a ton more local sightseers. And these trains frequently sell out, which means that you need to buy your tickets well in advance to make sure that the train doesn't sell out, because even if you're going all the way from Emeryville to Denver, if there are a ton of local sightseers getting on in Glenwood Springs, like what we had, the train will sell out and they won't sell you a ticket from Emeryville to Denver because all of those people are going to be on the train for that short period of time. So make sure you book your tickets as far in advance as you can.
Yeah. And because of that, because so many people take that scenic route, starting in Grand Junction, some people get on early to do it. But Glenwood Springs is the big thing. A lot of people from Denver will go out to Glenwood Springs for the weekend, and then on Sunday, it's like a nice afternoon, 6 to 7 hour drive through this beautiful, gorgeous
train
scenery.
ride.
Or sorry, not a drive. I drove the train. Just kidding. I didn't do that. But this was the point where they made an announcement that they were going to ration the time in the observation car because there were so many people wanting to get in and do stuff. So you would get a ticket, and your ticket would last for, I think it was like
an hour
minutes.
and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, and it's just fair. You know, everybody gets a chance. Although, granted, on the cars, in the coach cars, you still have really big windows, and you still have good views, regardless. But make sure you get in there for that observation car. Or you know, if you know you want to get into it later, ask them for a later time, so that way you can get in the observation car and see during the periods where you literally can't get to it except via train or kayaks.
Yeah. And that's why it should really be on everyone's bucket list, is this section that you can only get to via train or the river. And for the very best views, you want to sit on the north side of the train, which is going to be the left side of the train. If you're going from Emeryville to Denver like we were, you want to sit on that side for the first hour or so, leaving Glenwood Springs. And then if you can, switch to the south side until you get into Granby, which is another hour or hour and a half, 2 hours-ish, maybe. And then you can sit on either side for equally good views.
After Granby, the views are just incredible. So it doesn't matter which side you're on, it's going to be gorgeous.
Yeah.
You do follow along the Colorado River for most of the day.
It's beautiful.
Colorado is very famous for people going out into nature. That's why you live in Colorado.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of people out being recreational in the river. A lot of people waving at the train. A lot of people showing their butt.
Yeah. Apparently this is a thing. When you are like fishing or kayaking or whatever on the Colorado River, as the train goes by, you moon the train. So
a lot of full moons. A lot of full moons on that train.
Yep.
It was great in the observation car. People were like, "Oh my god, it's butts."
It was There were several.
I'm guessing there was a little bit of alcohol involved with the butts, but you know.
I mean, you're
but
fishing,
whatever.
so
whatever you do, it's fine. It's your thing. It's fine. Once you get to the fresh air stop of Fraser at an elevation of 8,573 feet, you're going to start heading down the Rockies to get into Denver.
Yeah.
Fraser was gorgeous. It was absolutely gorgeous. And the air was so crisp.
Yeah. It's so clean. It smells better.
We were there in like early fall, but yeah, it was so nice and somewhere that I would really like to go back to. I think it'd be really
there were
nice.
a couple of towns that we passed through that we were like, oh my gosh, this is so cute. We should look into coming back here just to like hang out in this town. But be careful with the elevation there when you get off for the fresh air stop. And especially while you're moving around in the train while it's moving, because the elevation can make you get lightheaded. So just be aware of how you're feeling and sit down as much as you can. Yeah.
You hold on to stuff as you're moving and just be aware that it'll surprise you. It sneaks up on you and suddenly you're just like, oh my God, I need to sit down. And just, and everyone understands. Everyone's in the same boat on the train.
Yeah.
All the attendants understand, it happens. They warn you about this stuff and they make sure that everybody's okay.
Yeah. But in this section of the route as well, between Fraser and Denver, you'll also go through Moffat Tunnel, which is kind of crazy. It's this 6.2 mile long tunnel that cuts through the middle of a mountain. Then it also crosses the Continental Divide,
Yeah.
which, if you don't know, it splits natural water sources between the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic Oceans.
Yeah.
But it's very dark inside
I
this
mean,
tunnel.
it's an over 6 mile long tunnel.
It's
and,
dark.
and it's you're like 6 miles, but you're in it for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, in
And
complete darkness.
Complete darkness.
I mean, there are some lights on the train.
But it's very dark. They warn you long before, and before they get in there, they're like, you have to stay in your car, sit down, no one can get up because you get disoriented easily.
Yeah.
You can't move between cars because if you open the doors, even though they're enclosed, there's cracks and things, and the change of pressure will actually suck dust into the train.
Yeah.
Which gets nasty for everybody.
Yeah. So just don't do it. Just
Yeah.
sit down. They'll make an announcement. Go find a seat, sit down, stay there. And for about 10 minutes, you'll be in the dark. And then when you come out the other side, I think you'll actually be able to see Denver.
Yeah, it's not
Pretty soon after
too
that.
long after that. You see
Yeah.
Denver. You pass through some really, really amazing views.
Yeah.
Because you're so high up and you're slowly making your way down. But you do see Denver from really far away.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh hey, it's not
We're
that far.
almost there. And
No,
then you're not.
no. It's still like another 90 minutes or 2 hours because you have to go so far down.
Yeah.
Even though Denver's the mile-high city, even going down 3,000 feet in elevation. With a train, it still takes forever.
Yeah. But it's a nice ride because, you're winding through the mountains.
Yeah.
And one of the train attendants on our train even got on the intercom
Yeah.
system and was giving us some tour details,
It was cool.
And
yeah.
so it was really nice.
Talking about
Yeah.
various, the various mountains and rocks and stuff, and like the history and like things like that. It was cool. It was really nice
really
of them.
cool.
Nice of them to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, Amtrak knows that a lot of people go between Glenwood Springs and Denver specifically for this ride, so
Yeah.
they cater to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, we did this 33-ish hour train ride in coach seats because we were using the Amtrak USA Rail Passes, which we'll do another video about because that's a whole other thing. But the coach seats are very comfortable. It's not like on an airplane.
Yeah.
There's
2 seats on each side, and they're pretty big. They're really cushy. There's a lot of leg room,
Yeah.
especially if you're less than 6 feet tall, which we both are.
Yeah.
You have a leg rest, a foot rest, a tray table. There's an outlet that you can use, and the huge windows that offer amazing views.
Yeah. So even if you can't be in the observation car because it's full,
Yeah.
the coach car windows are still really great.
Yeah.
Because they're huge. Yeah.
The seats recline back pretty far. You're able to rest in them pretty easily. When you go back, the leg rest goes up, and you can actually put your carry-on bag like underneath, kind of be hidden away.
Yeah. It just adds a little bit more security for when you're
Yeah.
sleeping overnight in the coach cars. But we never really had any security issues.
We didn't have any security issues. There really wasn't anything until much later in the month.
In the
end
train
of the
trip.
train
But
trip,
not
yeah.
on this route. We
But on
didn't
this route, we
have
had
any
none.
issues.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also an open overhead shelf for carry-on bags if you are just like, no, I need all of this leg room for my legs. There is that overhead shelf that you can put your carry-on bags on.
The biggest problem is that there's no showers, so
Yeah.
you're on it for 33 hours and you just got to deal.
Yeah.
Although
In the sleeper car passengers have shower access. It varies depending on the specific room you're booked in and the specific train you're on and when the last time it was updated. But I've also heard from other people that the water in those showers is just cold.
Yeah.
There's like no hot water, so that doesn't sound great to me.
no, yeah. It sounds bad. And there are sleeper car options, but they cost at least 4 times what the cost of a coach seat does.
Yeah.
And if you're using the USA Rail Pass like we did, you can't pay to upgrade.
Yeah.
You can't upgrade, period.
Yeah. It's
They
just not
They just
allowed.
don't do that.
Yeah. And they didn't assign anyone seats when we boarded in Emeryville, but they did move solo travelers around later on to try to accommodate companions to sit together as they were getting on, later on in the route.
Yeah. And they just ask. They'd be like, hey, you know, because a lot of people, if it's not busy, they'll sit with like 2 seats, you know, especially at night when you sleep, it's a lot more comfortable to have the 2 seats. You can sprawl out. Yeah. But when the train is full, and again, they warn you of this, like as you're going, because a lot of people were taking the full all the way to Denver like we were, or to Chicago. And so they warn everybody constantly. I mean, they're making sure everyone's very aware. Yeah. And there were no issues, you know, if you get moved over to somebody else for a while, you know, it's not forever, so it's not a big deal.
There's usually plenty of room to spread out.
Yeah. We were really happy with our coach seats on this train because we spent most of our time in the observation car anyway. Yeah. So it didn't really matter.
Yeah. And we are going to make another video about food and drinks on Amtrak trains because I know that's a very hot topic that people want to know about. So make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss that video.
There's no Wi-Fi on this train. A lot of people were surprised by this because it's such a long train ride, but Amtrak seems to only provide Wi-Fi in its commuter trains in the Northeast. Yeah. And it makes sense because, you know, the trains are not equipped with Wi-Fi, like with like satellite Wi-Fi or anything. I don't know if that's something Amtrak will eventually do. You will lose signal for several hours with your phone.
Yeah. Pretty much while you're in the canyons in Colorado, while you're going through the mountains. But you're not going to want to be looking at your phone or working or anything during that time anyway, because the views are just too spectacular.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, you get to a certain point after Grand Junction and Glenwood Springs, you're not going to be working. You're going to be
looking at the views.
Looking at the pretty views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this route does continue all of the way over to Chicago. It travels from Emeryville to Chicago or vice versa. Yeah. Which from Denver to Chicago takes an additional 19 hours. Which we did after spending a few days in Denver. But you can do it all the way through in one shot if you want. We just don't really recommend that.
Yeah, when you get to the second night on the train, which we did once in one leg later on, it gets to be a bit much.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And 51 or 52 hours on the train, or 50 hours or whatever the total length is, it's just too much. Like, it's way too long.
Yeah, it's just too much in one go. You know, you need to be able to, like, step off, get more fresh air than just 10 minutes at a time, you know, and
plus
get fresh food and stuff. So
yeah, and Denver's great.
Denver's
amazing. Stop and stay in Denver. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. But this section between Emeryville and Denver of the California Zephyr is really what should be on everybody's bucket list because it's just 2 days of amazing views. Yeah.
And the really cool thing about it is that the view will change depending on the time of year you go. Like, we went in late September and saw lots. By that point, fall was happening up that high elevation. Yeah. And it was great. It was really pretty, a lot of pretty colors.
We got to see the golden aspen trees, which were beautiful. And it's one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. But I would also really love to take this route in winter to see the landscape in the snow.
That'd be amazing.
It would be
incredible.
It'd
be really cool.
Yeah. But to get even more detailed information about this train ride, head to the link in the description to read our full blog article over on our website. And while you're over there, sign up for our newsletter to follow along for all of our adventures.
We'll be back with more videos.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.